have to admit, I'm a sucker for a good transformation story. I never get tired of hearing how people face great challenges and overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. There's just something about stories of facing hardship, of real life struggles, and coming out the other end a better person. And today's guest is a perfect example of this. He had an active and athletic background. He was the captain of his high school football team, but somewhere in midlife, his health took a turn for the worse. He was married, he had 5 kids, a high-pressure job, and he put self-care on the back burner. He was no longer active, and he was eating what many stressed-out parents eat, which is quick and easy but very unhealthy meals. And he grew heavier and unhealthier. He stopped weighing himself after he hit 315 pounds. Things were bad and about to get much worse as he was diagnosed with cancer. But because this is a transformation story, this tale has a happy ending. Hello and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Show. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, and my mission is to help you get into the best shape of your life, no matter your age. We have a great show for you today. Michael Martz is here to share his thoughts on strong, healthy, vibrant aging. But before we get to that, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Energy Bits. Energy Bits makes the purest, most energy-dense spirulina and chlorella on the planet. I personally have used their products daily for over a year now. I take spirulina every morning for its antioxidants, omega-3s, and the 40 vitamins and minerals to help improve my energy and focus. I also take their chlorella every evening for its super high chlorophyll and vitamins and minerals to help with immune function, recovery, and gut health. I recommend starting out with their Vitality Bits. This is their 50-50 blend of spirulina and chlorella, and you can find those over at energybits.com. And because you're a listener of this podcast, you can save 20% off your purchase when you use the coupon code SILVEREDGE at checkout. Again, that's energybits.com and use the coupon code SILVEREDGE, that's Silver Edge all run together, at checkout to save 20%. And one last thing, if you'd like to learn more about Energy Bits and the superfood powers of algae in general, I recorded a podcast episode with the CEO and Chief Science Officer of Energy Bits a few months ago titled The World's Most Powerful Superfood with Catherine Arnston. So be sure to go back and give that a listen if you'd like to learn more. Okay, enough of that. Let's get on with today's show. My guest today is Michael Martz. Michael is a personal trainer and fitness coach who specializes in helping men and women over 40 reach their fitness goals and lead a healthy life. I started our interview by asking Michael what he was like as a kid.
So when I was younger, loved sports, was active in many sports. I was that typical neighborhood kid where we played basketball, we played baseball, we played games of 500, things like that. And then, my dad was a huge sports fan, so that was a big influence on me. Unfortunately, when I was a kid, I today would be considered an obese child. I carried a lot of weight, and it didn't slow me down, but it kind of hindered me along the way. So as I grew up, once I hit high school, my love for football kind of got me into shape. It helped start forming some of those aspects. And then I became a pretty good athlete, played a number of sports in high school.
You had mentioned that you were overweight as a kid and then you got active in sports. Did you use that weight maybe to your advantage because you mentioned football, or what was your weight looking like as you got into high school athletics?
I always was considered bigger, even though I wasn't extremely tall. So I played offensive line, was all area, all conference, had lots of honors, captain of the football team. But yes, I wasn't going to be that quarterback. that type of athlete. Anything I ever had to do as a young person, I had to work very hard at. I had to put in extra time. I didn't have all the talent in the world, or I wasn't extremely skilled, but I had to learn those things and practice over and over, be consistent.
Okay, so certainly that's a good foundation for where you are today, but a lot comes in between when you were playing high school football and today. So where did you go
Exactly.
after high school?
So I went to college. I got into some powerlifting, things like that. Also learned the college lifestyle. Did not finish college at that time. Came back home, started working, got into a professional career, dealt with sales and insurance and things like that. Ended up getting married, had 5 kids at the time, some stepchildren. Between pressures of supporting a big family and increasing my professional career, I also went back to school full time with 5 children and a household and working full time. So what happens then with a lot of people is your nutrition goes south. You become a stress eater. You find comfort in food. You tend not to be as active. I was coaching at the time, and I continue to coach my children and area football teams, basketball, baseball, all the different sports. But I let myself go. Everybody came before me. And I'm sure that's a common story with a lot of folks. But as I aged, I got up to well over 300 pounds. I think I stopped weighing myself one time at 318. And I was only 5'9", 5'10" at the time. So I was a pretty big boy.
Yeah. And I think you're right that a lot of folks can relate to that, right? That time in our lives where, especially those of us that have careers and maybe high stress or high pressure careers, we have families, and we end up putting self-care on the back shelf. We don't make that a priority. And as a result, of course, naturally our health starts to decline. Now, in your case, that's a pretty big decline, right? If you're 5'9", 5'10", 300 plus pounds, that's certainly going to have some health impacts. So how did that impact you? How were you dealing with that at the time? Did you mentioned you stopped weighing yourself at, I think you said 318, and in your words, everybody was coming before you. How do you turn that around?
So very frustrating. I was very successful in my professional career, but as anybody that weighs a lot or becomes obese or puts on a lot of, clothes were a problem. I had to go to back then, everything was live. You're in person. I'm holding meetings. I'm talking in front of people, but I didn't feel very good about myself, but you still had to project that professional image. So that's very hard to deal with. So along the way, unfortunately, I got cancer. And I am a cancer survivor, knock on wood. And I've been cancer free for, I think it's going on 19 years now. So that was kind of a wake up call for me. It was like, okay, you have a serious illness. This cancer is the big C word and pretty shocking. And long story short, it kind of woke me up and said, okay, I got to start taking care of myself. There's been a lot of studies that the type of cancer I got is very prevalent in obese people. So that definitely affected me along the way. So just through treatments, losing a kidney, major surgery, obviously you start losing weight. You get back into it. A number of years after that, I ended up with some scar tissue. So I had a kidney removed. They go in through your midsection. And I ended up developing some scar tissue, and I had to have additional surgeries on my stomach, hernias, all that sort of thing, where I basically had to learn to re-eat and learn how to add nutrition to my body, which I thought was very interesting as I went to the medical college of Wisconsin. And when they restarted me on things after a major surgery, the most important thing they stressed on me was eating protein. They said you have to have protein to maintain the main elements and systems of, your body, your circulatory system, your skeletal system, your muscle system, your heart, your lungs, all the major organs. And of course, I asked those questions like, well, what about fat? What about carbs? We've always been taught, cut your fat, all that. They're like, we're not worried about that. Fat will be in with your protein. We're not worried about carbohydrates at all. So I thought that was a very interesting, and that was kind of a very big turning point in my life where I really started studying nutrition, getting into it. I got all the way down at one time to 175 pounds. And because of the illness and this and that and surgeries, but then I started getting back into exercise also.
Okay, so yeah, let's back up a little bit. How old were you when you kind of made this big transformation? You say you kind of had a couple of surgeries there, and you had to relearn to eat, because I think that's very interesting. What sort of age were you at that
I was
time?
in my 40s.
In your 40s, okay, yeah. So, and how old are you now?
I am 61.
61. Okay. So in your 40s, you had to relearn to eat. And I guess this journey started with the medical community based on your surgeries, telling you about the importance of protein. And that sort of, it sounds like, sent you on this mission to start learning about the macronutrients, the importance of macronutrients, the importance of eating healthy foods. Because I'm going to go out on a limb and say your diet probably was the standard American diet or something similar to that before. Can you talk about your diet before, as you made your way north of 300 pounds, and then what it looked like as you were starting to make these healthy changes?
So very typical, having 5 kids, 4 boys. We ate a lot of pizza,
Yeah.
and it was nothing for me to sit down and eat a whole pizza. And then I would be working late at night a lot of times, or I would be studying while I was going to school, and the kids would either be in bed, and it was nothing at like 9:30, 10 o'clock for me to start eating more after dinner and not eating all the right things. I wasn't eating nutrition or nutritional food, but I was eating a lot of highly processed food, convenient food, things that are frozen, you can throw right in the microwave, bags of chips and all sorts of things like that. So when I had to relearn to eat, basically, and it's a mind thing, because they actually have you talk to a therapist about these type of things also. And I learned quite a bit from that. So therefore, I went from that to eating real food, not highly processed food. Not to say that I don't, and even today, if I want to go out for a good fish fry in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and have a beer, I certainly will. But then the rest of the weekend, like I used to do, you don't continue down that path. And then the next day have 10 pancakes and a pound of bacon and everything else. You get back into that mode of, okay, Saturday, I have an active day. I need to make sure I get my protein in, all of that, and eat nutritionally, eat good food, eat when you're hungry also, which is a whole other subject we could get into.
Yeah, let's put a pin in that. I do want kind of that intuitive eating, and maybe we'll go there next. But before we get there, talk to us a little bit, because you mentioned probably what predictably we thought, right? What you were eating before was processed food, ultra processed food. We kind of have traded health for convenience a lot of times nutritionally. And then you moved over to this healthier whole food diet. Did that happen for you overnight? Did you just wake up one day and say, okay, that's it, cold turkey, I'm changing my diet? Or was this a slow transformation? How did that work, moving from that very unhealthy diet to that, well, let's say, very healthy diet?
Those are very good questions, because today I teach people that you need to do small changes so that it's sustainable. And not everyone, and I just recently, I think, did a post about this, not everyone can just flip the switch mentally and physically. There was a combination of, I had to flip the switch because of medical reasons. That was tough to do, and certain people can do it. I have known athletes, I have known people that say, okay, that's it. I'm putting a stake in the ground. And tomorrow, this is the way it's going to be, or starting today. That is not the majority I see or feel of the population in America today, or even around the world. You need to continue to make smaller changes so that they stay with you, whether it's making sure you eat breakfast or you don't need to eat breakfast or things like that. I'm a big believer in being an individual and what works for you also. But then, of course, there's some really good basic nutritional and what I say movement things that people should be doing, I think, every day at every age.
100% agree with you. And I love that you talk about taking small steps and this being a journey. I'm a big, big believer. Same thing. A lot of people miss the fact that small progress, small steps, even tiny steps, if they're done consistently over time, can have huge results, right? So because I do want to dive into the nutrition piece and your thoughts there, but before we go there, talk to us a little bit about the quality of life changes that you would have seen in making that move from being very, very unhealthy to this healthier version of yourself, right? What were some of the things you noticed?
Well, obviously, I was still involved in coaching and raising children, and my kids started to continue to move up through sports and were very successful athletes. But I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be the catcher for my son who was a pitcher. And I wanted to be able to throw the football around. And I wanted to be able to go power lift with one of my sons who they all played football, but I wanted to be in the weight room. There was a summer where I was a weightlifting coach and strength coach for the high school they went to. So it really progressed fast. And I always loved strength training. I always loved doing athletics, except when you're very heavy and your back hurts and your knees hurt and your hips won't flex. That's very tough to do. You could push through. Now I notice that, okay, I can move around. I can compete with a high school athlete, which mentally really picked you up. And then I started getting into teaching at health clubs. And then it kind of took off from there. I actually started as a spin instructor because I was there every Monday and Wednesday at 6 a.m. in that class. And that instructor was leaving to become a nurse practitioner. And the owner came up to me and said, man, you're in here every morning at 6 a.m. Would you be able to take over this class? He goes, I'll pay for your certification. I'm like, wow, I never thought of that. I loved coaching for years. My kids started growing. So they went off to high school more and college, and I missed coaching. So what I started to do is I started coaching adults. And that is just a huge passion of mine. I love sharing what I've learned, where I've been, and being able to put people through whatever programs, and we can expand on that a little bit. But I have done just about every type of certification and program and exercise program. I've seen every kind of diet in the, being 61 years old, you have seen everything from shakes to CrossFit to HIIT to all types of different exercises.
Yeah, 100%. And I love how you describe that journey, right? From very unhealthy to having a very medical need to get healthy. And along that journey, it sounds like you got rid of some aches and pains. You increased your mobility. You were able to keep up with your kids, and just your overall quality of life improving. Sounded like in there, maybe even some self-esteem came along with these changes. And where it led you was this passion. It led you into what you're doing now, right? So this is your career. You are a health and fitness professional. So talk to us about that transition from corporate life to what you were doing before. I think you said maybe sales or insurance. There's that corporate life into what you're doing today.
I have several college degrees in IT and information systems, management systems. So for 20 some years, I had worked with a big corporation, and that was a lot of sitting, a lot of sitting in front of a computer. That was my knowledge, my specialty, and managing people that worked in technology. Well, when that started going away, or during that time, I realized that if I'm going to maintain this body or physical fitness, I have to continue to get into something. So I've been doing this part-time for a long time, and I've had some great experiences. I've helped open like major big box gyms, Gold's Gym downtown in Milwaukee, the Wisconsin Athletic Club out in Menominee Falls. I've been there. I've developed programs. Again, I mentioned this is my huge passion. I've come up with different workouts and programs that helped people who have been in my situation get better overall. And not just physically, but mentally also, overall in life. And I have met some wonderful and great people, have been a presenter at major fitness conferences and things like that. So I've had some great experiences. I've met people from all over the world. Les Mills is a company that did all sorts of different programs. I got certified in them. I met all the people from New Zealand. I was flown out to the East Coast to train. I'm a certified rowing instructor, which is a great exercise. And I trained with Olympic Alternative and learned how to row. I took advantage of owners of these gyms to get me to where I'm a fitness professional. I have lots of experience now.
Yeah, I love that. And you and I were talking before we hit record here that most of us in the health and fitness and nutrition space, we end up here because of stories like yours, right? We have seen this transformative effect of health and fitness and what it's done in our own lives or the people close to us, perhaps. And that's how we end up here. And for folks like us, it's something that we do later in life, right? This is have a similar story to yours, right? We're making that transition from that very corporate life into a fitness life. So hats off to you for doing that. I love it.
Thank you.
Let's get back to let's start with nutrition. You had mentioned intuitive eating, and you had talked about some basic principles that you first learned, the prioritization or importance of protein. Talk to us a little bit about your overall philosophy and how you coach your clients and talk to folks about nutrition.
So I have a lot of folks that come to me and say, how do I lose weight?
Yep.
I've been there. I've done it. I've been up and down the scales. I was a very healthy 250-pound man also at one time. But then, like most people, when you put a lot of stress on your joints, you end up developing arthritis. You end up developing torn meniscuses. You end up having surgeries. You have, I suffer from rheumatoid arthritis and osteoporosis, and a lot of it had to do with my diet and carried all that weight for years. So I also study right now with precision nutrition, and I have taken a number of certifications in nutrition for performance athletes throughout the Midwest where I live. And I'm a big believer in education. So there are so many people out there that say, hey, I'll teach you how to lose weight. And we'll lose weight. Well, guess what? There's a lot of stuff out there right now that you can drop 10 or 15 pounds just like that. But is it sustainable? I believe as far as macronutrients and overall nutrients, protein is number one. Along with that, I also believe in strength training, which we're not, but to me, those two tie together so much. Every individual is going to be different, and you have to look at what's going to work for you. And I know a lot of people will argue about that philosophy and say, well, you have to have this amount of grams of protein, this amount of grams of carbs, this amount of grams of fat. For me, a higher percentage of protein, a good percentage of fat, and a lower percentage of carbohydrates works for me. Does that mean it's going to work for everyone? I can pass on my knowledge and successes, but it has to be sustainable. It has to be consistent. You have to be able to live within that, nutritional world, and there's so many confusing things out there. My philosophies are, again, look for real food. It doesn't have to say organic, but do your research. I will say this, and I know it's a little controversial. You have all this, what I call fake meat out there. Just turn over the package and read the ingredients. So if you grab a steak in the grocery store and you grab, and I'm not going to mention any companies in particular, some vegetable or vegan type meat, you're going to have 40 ingredients in what I call the fake meat. The ingredients for the beef is beef.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Eat less ingredients in food. Read your labels. And I know everyone talks about that and says, well, you got to read the label and everything. But a real simple rule of thumb, look and see. Less ingredients most likely is going to be a healthier food. That's what I encourage people to do. You will feel more satiated. You will feel more full overall. You will eat less if you eat quality food. So again, people come to me a lot about weight loss. You lose weight. Basically, one general rule, you have to be in some sort of calorie deficit. And I'll say that with a caveat. And a lot of people say, well, you just have to be in calorie deficit, you'll lose weight. But do you want to continue to build muscle, or do you want to continue to have a healthy body? So therefore you need to pay attention to what calories you're eating also. So I could say, okay, I need 2,500 calories to maintain my weight, to feel good as I lift or as I work out or as I bike or whatever. Now I want to drop a few pounds, so I'm going to go down to 2,100 calories. That doesn't mean I'm going to eat 2,100 calories of Twinkies and Ho-Hos and donuts and junk food, because, yeah, in the long run, I'll probably lose some weight, but I'll look terrible. I will develop some disease from that also, and illness.
Yeah, not at all a healthy prescription. So what I hear you saying then is, while nutritional science is certainly, it can be vastly complex, the practical application for most people, even the standard American diet, is exactly what you said, right? It's to start with real food. Start there, prioritize protein. If you just do those two things, only those two things, maybe you could say eat mindfully and certainly be conscious of how much you're eating, but you're so far ahead of everyone else, right? And especially, we know that as we age, protein is more and more important. So we're speaking specifically to folks 50 and older. I know probably you see the same thing. I'll intake a new nutrition client, and when I look at their, I say, hey, let's just take a food recall, or let's record your food for a week, and they're eating 30, 40 grams a day of protein at, a body weight of 170, 180 pounds. And right away, that's just a red flag. And of course, The vast majority of what's happening is it's processed foods, and then most of those are crappy carbohydrates. But really just backing up and trying to make those whole food selections and prioritizing proteins are something that anybody can start with today. You don't have to hire a coach. You don't have to do anything fancy. Just with those two basic things, those are the big rocks. You can really move forward with that. Is that a fair way of saying that?
I would absolutely agree with you 100%. And again, we talked about sustainability.
Right.
Well, if you start there, and like you say, those rocks are that foundation of getting more protein in your diet and looking for real food, not highly processed with tons of different ingredients. And I'm not talking about spices or anything, but I'm talking about the many chemicals that are in food.
Yep.
There's so much research out there about how you should eat, what you should eat, everything else. So it's very confusing. But you're right. You don't necessarily need a coach to do that. But sometimes people need that coach. And that's where I hope like a person like you and myself come in, where, okay, we have the knowledge, the education, and that person just needs that basic guidance.
Sure. Yep. And you probably see the same thing. Folks that come to me, especially if you're over 50, this isn't the first time they've tried to lose weight, right? For a weight loss client.
Oh,
They've tried a
yes.
bunch of things before. I've tried keto. I've tried intermittent fasting. I've tried this. Weight Watchers have done a bunch of things typically by the time they get to somebody like us. So yeah, I love that you've got that very down to earth, grounded, simple approach. And a lot of people may be surprised that that's the key to weight loss isn't a gimmicky diet. Really, it's what you're talking about. It's changing your relationship with food and eating in a way that you can sustain for the rest of your life that maintains that healthy body composition for you as a unique bio individual, right? To your point earlier, you said, hey, maybe my macro split looks like this. I can eat this much protein, this much fat, and this much carb. And that's how I perform best doing what I do. But that may not work for you, right? So we all have to figure out what number of calories are best for us and what foods agree and disagree with us. And so that's where obviously a coach can come in and help work with you, hold you accountable, all that fun stuff. Now, you had brought up exercise, and specifically when you said, hey, I think protein and exercise and resistance training specifically go hand in hand. Let's transition a little bit and talk to us about your thoughts of the importance of movement for those of us over 50.
So, and again, I should stress a little more that people over 50, and just what you said, I have tried probably every diet and every exercise program on this earth. Because you flounder, you go, okay, I've dropped 10 pounds. This is the greatest thing. But now you sit there and you can't sustain it. So, and I know I use that word sustainability a lot, but you also have to, with your diet, but you also have to be able to sustain a program of movement. So for me, people over 50, it's very important to increase your mobility. So I have gotten into a habit that every morning I stretch, and I can teach people very simply some very good stretches to start increasing, to get the blood flowing into your joints, that type of thing. I think besides strength training, a mobility type of process or program for people over 50 is so, so important. And it can start with a yoga class once a week, or it can start a daily habit, of just doing that. I had an orthopedic surgeon who has operated on both my shoulders and knee and everything tell me, you will thank yourself when you get older that you continue to do that type of stretching every morning. On top of that, the older we get, we lose muscle mass. We lose testosterone. We lose women maybe deal with hormones a lot differently, obviously, than men do, but maybe have a lot more of an issue going through all that. I have found that if you can get a good base program of strength training, and I'm not saying you have to be a power lifter or do CrossFit or whatever, but a good base program to build your overall joints and muscles, your major muscle groups, that will go so far for you to be a much healthier person. And then your body will start responding in different ways. I always tell people, I said, wouldn't it be great when you were younger and you ran around with your kids and played ball? Wouldn't it be great to be able to go do that with your grandkids? Or not have to pay the boy down the street to rake your leaves. Rake your own leaves. Do your own yard work, that type of thing. There's so many people out there today that just can't. I have a sister that has severe MS. And just to sidetrack just a bit, she's the type of person, unfortunately, that once she got hit with that, kind of gave up on things. And now she's basically in a wheelchair. I suffer from autoimmune, and she kind of motivated me to go the opposite way and say, you know what? No disease or condition or arthritis or whatever is going to stop me. I'm going to keep moving. So I'm the type of athlete now that I can go out and jump on my bike and ride 50 miles on a Saturday. At 61 years old, my joints might swell up just a bit. I know how to adjust my own body, but through strength training, and also I believe you need to get your heart rate up to a certain point. I have a number of certifications in performance training, cardiovascular training. And you'll hear a lot, people will go, you don't need to do cardio. You don't need to do cardio. Well, no, that should not be the basis of your exercise program. But a couple times a week of getting that heart rate up and moving will strengthen the major muscle in your body and help you live longer, period.
Yeah, 100%. I love that prescription. So just like we had kind of simplified nutrition by saying, hey, look, here's a couple of big levers you guys can pull. And that's one is to select whole foods over processed and ultra processed foods. The other is prioritize healthy protein. It sounds like on the movement side, we have mobility, we got some sort of resistance or strength training, and some sort of movement that gets your heart rate up, that cardio piece.
Exactly.
So if you were to break that down for somebody listening, and obviously it's going to depend, right? If a client comes to you, you're going to custom probably build a program based on where they are, but just somebody who's deconditioned and wanting to start and listening to this perhaps and wanting to start some sort of program, what might an example week look like for that person? How many times would they do, say, a weightlifting versus aerobics or cardio activity?
So I would encourage people, in most of my programs, I can set people up from 3 to 5 days a week of doing some sort of resistance training. Now, along with that resistance training, there is some mobility exercise involved with that. But again, to me, that's the base. We're going to start there. And then we're going to stress on getting more mobility back into your hips, your knees, your joints, that type of thing. There's so many studies out there where we were told you should not do this as far as squatting right now. And then some people will go, well, what do you mean a squat? You know, we were taught for years, keep your knees back behind your toes. Right. And now you see so many studies out there. And I'm actually working with a number of fitness professionals. Get those knees up over your toes and stretch those ligaments out. That will help strengthen the muscles around maybe a damaged joint. So, and then on top of it, go for walks, go for hikes, start off small. So yeah, a typical week, you could be doing some strength training at least 3 days a week. I would encourage people almost daily to do some sort of stretching. And it doesn't have to be 30 or 45 minutes or anything. It can be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just to work on loosening that body up a little bit. And then, of course, I would have at least twice a week have somebody, if you're passionate, just going for a walk with your dog or your grandchildren or a hike somewhere near your home. I would encourage that at least a couple times a week. And then we can go from there. I also am a big proponent on, since obviously I cycle and I row, I try to teach people, okay, when you go out, you know, people ask me all the time, well, should I be running? And I'm like, okay, what do you do when you run? You pick your foot up and you slam it down on the ground. That shocks your entire body. Now, I wish I could run. I think that's a great exercise, also very good for your mood and your mental health and everything else, but not everyone can do that. So I try to teach people to get on an indoor cycle. Get on a spin bike. Get on something that you're not lifting up your leg and slamming it down into the pavement or the ground. Also, rowing will actually work everything from, seriously, from your ankles all the way up to your neck.
Certainly will, yeah.
But if you can get in a routine of that, my gosh, you're doing everything that you're doing running, but you're not impacting your body. It's non-impact cardiovascular health or exercise. So that would be a typical week that I would look at. Strength training 3 to 5 times a week, mobility almost every day, and then some sort of, let's get our heart rate up, whether it's a walk, rowing, a cycling, taking a class at a gym. And don't, people sometimes get intimidated by that, but you got to start somewhere. Get in there, and you might find that you absolutely love it.
Yeah, 100%. Really like that. And again, that's not a convoluted prescription, is it? It's pretty basic. It's almost back to basics, is because that's what works. It's always worked and always will work. So I
Yes.
love that advice. So we've got our over 50 person in. We've got them. We've changed their diet up a little bit. They're eating better. Now we've got them moving. They're feeling better. What are your thoughts on recovery in terms of, and not just recovery so much, you've got to have some rest days in between workouts, et cetera, but more lifestyle things. I'm thinking the importance of sleep, the importance of managing stress, et cetera. How do you talk to clients about lifestyle things and recovery and mindset?
Yes, absolutely. Mindset is so important. It's amazing. And this is coming from a guy that was described as a drill sergeant at one time when I used to teach boot camp classes, and I still teach boot camp classes, but it used to be go hard, go hard. And I'm the type and I'll be the first person to admit to one of my clients, I said, man, it's tough for me to take a rest day. It's tough for me to get enough sleep, but you got to be disciplined enough to do that. If you want good quality of life, you need to get enough sleep and rest. You need to let your body repair. If you are feeling pain or super soreness, and now you have to get back and weight lift more or strength train more, or today is my day where I go for a 2-mile walk, you're not going to enjoy it at all. Now, I'm not saying that every exercise program or whatever you want to call it, fitness program, is going to be enjoyable. There's some pain along the way. There's some struggle along the way. There's mental resistance, but you will feel so much better if you get that rest and recovery, and I'm a big one on, obviously I have to recover, but it's hard for me to say no. I like to push it, but the best way to do it, and I have some of my best workouts. I've increased my strength now at 61 years old. I'm stronger than when I was in my 40s, and I'm able to do a lot more, but I respect my body enough to let it rest some. And that's a big word. And I try to teach people, respect yourself. Be a little selfish. Take care of yourself also, because if you're able to do that, then you can take care of others and you can be there for others, which if that makes you happy or if that's part of your life, or, like I take care of my sister and things like that. Well, maybe I wouldn't be able to do that if I was disabled or I was limping around or I couldn't walk the next day after a workout. So that's basically my philosophy. You need to get that rest, but you need to look at your overall life. If you're a caregiver at all, or maybe you're not, it doesn't matter. You need to take care of yourself so you can help take care of others or take care of your life overall.
Yeah, again, 100% agree with what you're saying there. I think that a lot of people miss that we show up as the best version of ourselves when we practice that self-care. Like you had said, be a little selfish. And it's true. When you prioritize that time for taking care of yourself in the ways you're talking about, right? Nutritionally, recovery, and movement, you show up as a better person all around, including to those that you're, like you said, if you're giving care or in your workplace, your family, your relationships,
Exactly.
all of those things,
yes.
right? Yeah, 100%. Yes. Now, you had also referenced in there somewhere about being motivated. So when we're talking about the things we're talking about, prioritizing sleep and reducing stress and maintaining good nutrition and movement and exercise, we're not talking about doing this until we lose 20 pounds, right? We're talking about making this a part of our life forever.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on staying motivated over the long haul and maybe creating healthy habits to continue doing this for the long haul and not just to reach a temporary goal?
Well, that's a tough one because you have to have that thought. And as a coach or trainer or whatever title we have as fitness professionals, we have to continue to remind people that this is a lifetime change. This is not just the 5 weeks you're doing a class or you have a goal weight and you want to lose some weight. I would love to be able to throw scales right out the window. I try to teach people, okay, motivation. Wouldn't it be nice And I went through this in my life, to just go to the store and pull something off the rack and it fits. You feel good about yourself. You can be a little more stylish even at my old age, where if I was 300 pounds, I would be pretty well put into a little, how do you want to describe it? A little world of only being able to wear certain clothes and things like that. It would be a very stressful situation. And sometimes you're embarrassed to be out in public or whatever, that type of thing. But it's such a mental aspect of that. And I try to teach people that this is the long haul. Let's start off with small changes and keep moving forward so that you do this the rest of your life. It's not just a 5-week program or a 4-week program, or even, 6 months. Now I'm in the best shape of my life and now I'm just going to go crazy and do whatever. No. And this may sound very daunting by a lot of people. They might say, man, you've talked about exercise and eating habits, and now I got to stretch every day, and now I got to try cardio. It is a lot of time, but you're putting time into yourself to help your overall life. So therefore, you have to be consistent. You have to sustain this your entire life. But once you start making those changes, I think that starts help with your motivation. Like things I mentioned, clothes fit better. You feel better. You're able to go out and play ball with your grandkids or whatever. My grandson begged me to coach his football team because he's like, I knew you did it for my dad and you're in better shape than he is right now. So
nice. Yeah.
Get out, Papa, get out here and teach me. Well, that to me is so rewarding. Makes you feel so good inside. I want other people to feel those feelings. I want other people to feel accomplishments and be proud of themselves. Because I'll tell you, that will help your mental health overall almost more than anything.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that a lot of people, they count on that motivation because they're starting something new, right? I'm starting a diet. I'm starting this exercise program. And, we're recording this in January of 2022. And while it's the end of January, there are already a bunch of people that started their New Year's resolution, their health or fitness resolution, and have already given up on it. And I think what happens is that initial motivation to do something wears off pretty quickly, right? Especially if you're doing something, if you just completely are changing your lifestyle and not taking these small steps like you're saying. But if you can stick with it long enough to see some of the results you're describing, the self-esteem and being able to do things, reduction of aches and pains and just greater quality of life, that's really what motivates you, right? That's what keeps you going over the long haul, as opposed to that initial kind of rah, I'm ready to seize the day and start this new diet. And a lot of folks, while nutrition and exercise certainly is important, I think a lot of folks think that what's really important is this, you'd mentioned like a 6-week program or this particular diet. But what comes after that is equally or probably more important than that actual initial prescription, right? If you're going on a diet to lose 20 pounds and then you lose 20 pounds, fantastic and hats off to you. But what you do after that is infinitely more important than that actual diet phase, right? And you probably are similar with me. I don't even like the word diet. It's just
exactly,
because of the connotations that it's a temporary thing I'm going to do until I get here. Well, that's all fine and good, but then what, right? And I think that small step, long term, let's make lifestyle changes. Let's redefine our relationships with our bodies, with our food, with movement, and create these lifelong habits is that's kind of what you're talking about, right? It's a much more compelling story for a sustainable, healthy life.
Absolutely. And we use the word maintenance, and so many people are afraid of that. They're like, oh my gosh, I lost all this weight. Now I feel good and everything, but now you want me to eat a little more?
Yeah.
Or you want me to continue this or that? Well, no, I'm good at cutting calories, but guess what happens? You keep cutting, then all of a sudden you fall off the wagon and you gain weight back, and now you're repeating this cycle. And I've done it. That's why I love working with people. That's why I'm sure you love working with people. We've been there. We've done it. It's a vicious cycle. It's so much better and easier that, okay, I put on a few pounds, big deal. I ate this cheat meal or whatever you want to call these things. But the bottom line is you have to just make those small changes, but you have to get to that maintenance part of your life. And there's nothing wrong with being in maintenance the rest of your life.
Right.
And think about what that word is saying. It's you're maintaining your health. And then maybe you want to, I've had clients where they're like, man, I love lifting weights now. I'm really back into it. I'm a former athlete. Now I feel good. And you know what? I'm going to do some heavier lifting, or I'm going to try to see if I can push myself. I've had one guy get into competitions. I've had my own granddaughter. She set the state record for squat and deadlift. And she's working on getting her bench up, and she's going to nationals for powerlifting. You would have never thought in a million years she would have done that when she was younger.
Yeah.
But everybody finds that passion through fitness and go with it. You know, I like to go out on long bike rides. I like to do charity rides. I like to raise money for cancer, obviously, and MS. I'll do those long rides. I'll do 2 days. I'll do 150, 200 miles. Yeah, the next few days I'm pretty sore, but so what? I can do it.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, Michael, you've obviously accomplished a lot in your life. You've come a long ways, right? You started out as life pretty active, and through a series of events, you ended up very unhealthy, and you've turned that around, and that's lit a passion for you. You're now out here sharing that with others, which is fantastic. So what's next for you? What's on the horizon?
So what I'd like to do is obviously continue to share this with people. I have recently launched very original name, Martz Fitness, which is my last name at fitness, but it was kind of recommended to keep it simple. Use your name because then people remember it. And I specifically, my type of business is working with people 40 and older. Now, I can train a high school athlete, which I did this last summer. It doesn't matter what the age group. I know I've mentioned my grandkids and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I've lived it. I can be your example. I can be your poster child of what went wrong and what went right for people. So therefore, I launched a full platform where people can get programs, workouts, and meal plans from me for a minimal monthly cost. And then I have clients that I call VIP. I think every trainer or coach calls them different, where I work one-on-one with them. And with the technology today and with COVID the way it is, and my technological background, I have all the meetings and the videos and the tools and anything. So I can work with somebody in Australia, even though the time constraints are a little different, or Europe or Canada or whatever. I mean, we have different countries that are very shut down right now.
Yeah.
And people want to know, okay, I can't go to my gym. I can't talk to my trainer there. What do I do? Well, there's some simple things you could do to work out at home and continue to maintain your health or to get results you want. And I love that type of thing. I love being able to say to my oldest client, she's 81, she gets up and down out of her chair. That's her squats. She has a couple bands and she loves doing that. And unfortunately, I can't be right there with her, but I can show her. Her husband watches her to make sure, this and that. So those things are wonderful. That's where I'm going with this. I want to be able to help people be healthier, period.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I love that. I love hearing that. You're obviously very passionate about it. And I love that you're out there sharing that with this population. So you had mentioned the Martz Fitness. How can people connect with you? How can people find you? Is that just, I think it's martzfitness.com, right, for the website? But what are other ways people can connect?
My website, I'm all over Instagram. Mm-hmm. I also have a Facebook page. I will be starting up a weekly, I have a Facebook group. Again, I'm in some of these infant stages where I'm developing some of this. But I do plan on doing a weekly, Facebook Live or Instagram Live, and talk with people, answer questions, anybody that are clients of mine, that type of thing. I also do podcasts like with you, right, Kevin, and I would like to do more of those. But to get a hold of me, I have no problem with anybody messaging me directly through Instagram, Facebook, most of the social media channels. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on, Twitter, all of that. So I try to cover most of the bases. I'm not a TikTok guy yet, but I'm being told I need to start doing some of that. You will never see me dancing around and doing things like that. I love to have fun and I like to make fitness fun, but I'm a pretty serious guy when it comes to what you should be doing for your life. So therefore, yes, my website, direct messaging me through different social medias are probably the best way. You can reach me at my email, which is martzfit50@gmail.com. And usually that's posted with all my profiles on different media outlets.
Okay. And folks, I will drop all of that contact information, so all the social, the website, and the email into the show notes for this. You can find that there. So anybody that would like to reach out and learn more or connect with Michael, that's the way to do that. So Michael, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your personal journey with us, as well as all your knowledge and your passion with us. You are a fantastic ambassador for healthy aging, and I certainly wish you all the best in all your future endeavors.
Kevin, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my story and to get the message out that, you and I are looking for to help people. So thank you so much.
Okay, folks, that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. You can find all the links to the resources we discussed in this episode over at silveredgefitness.com/episode 105. And you can continue the conversation over there as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on today's show. As we wrap up our time together today, you can show your support for this show in two important ways. The first is to tell a friend about this podcast and encourage them to give it a listen. The second is to give this podcast a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. I also want to let you know that if you've enjoyed this podcast, I have other free resources over at silveredgefree.com. There you'll find guides with my top tips on exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle. So feel free to head over there and download anything that looks useful to you and your health and wellness journey. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today, and until next time, stay strong.